Following an epic and unforgettable major in Estonia, we're stuck talking about vendor fees. But when a PDGA president is attached, you know the comment section will be packed. Kristen tightens up her trademark, bringing on some speculation, and really, not too much more this week in disc golf. What's good, disc generates? I'm Swiss Cheese and half of the disc golf world. And most of you know us as that one disc golf YouTube channel that covers the sport faster than most in our classic and unapologetic way. And we're back covering all things disc golf from the past week in yet another episode of This Week in Disc Golf, the final one before we witnessed disc golf history in person at the Beast in Nokia, Finland, delivering on a promise the nephew and I made back when we had far fewer subscribers 2 years ago when the World Championship was announced. All made possible by the contributions of everyone over on the Patreon, all of you who have subscribed, the ones always in the comment sections, fans who brought merch, and everyone all over the globe who tuned in to any of our videos. And stay tuned for even more as we promise to chronicle it all. The journey, the venue, haircuts, and of course the coverage you expect. Back featuring some of our very own videos again. And it wouldn't be a Worlds without our on-site daily recaps returning for the third year in a row now. For all the fans in attendance, come say hey when you see us. We normally aren't nearly as busy as we look, and I know I could use some help with some souvenir ideas for the wife. And of course, details on where the party's at. I'm sure you guys can tell I'm excited, but let's just get into the video already. Stepping away from the course-worthy major talk, and it's not just cause it's forgotten, more cause we got a soup episode upcoming discussing it. It was a slow news week otherwise in the lead up to Worlds. Slow enough that the sleuthing and Reddit post by Pubic Hair Pizza made more waves than it possibly should have. Still didn't stop many of us from Rain Manning math like we're playing Disc Golf Vendor Tycoon. And obviously we don't shy away from giving credit here at the Disc Golf World. You just live on, King. In the post it shared a clip of what appears as an invoice to vend at both Ledgestone and Deglow this year, spurring debate on if or if not the total was excessive. Exasperated even further with the PDGA's president and TD Nate Heinhold attachment to these events. And fresh off some conflict of interest accusations in the comment sections of some recent Facebook posts. And one has to speculate it didn't hurt from contributing to this also. The clip was taken from a famed vendor, Treasures of the Forest, attending most events on tour, who doesn't have an ounce of South Park level pettiness and was just candidly showing how a recent flash sale helped get them to the events in person. They were not being critical and have already paid to vend at the two events, so in this instance, it wasn't too much, for them at least. But accusations of steep or overpricing to vend have followed these stops prior, and other Heinhold-led events, including last year's Worlds, even resulting in a pirate-style pop-up fly mart with a number of pros in attendance. And I'm not gonna lie, $2,000 does seem to be a little bit heavy-handed, even with both of these events' prestige and attendance traffic attached. Especially when considering the footprint, as this would be the price for the lowest 10x10 space. This isn't a rig setup like dgpt, just a simple table and a few display boards. The comment section was filled with well-named contributors of the community chirping in defense. You had PDGA's Phil Delone and Dana Vici coming to the aid of Heinhold, just to name a few. And I'm paraphrasing here, but saying $250 is a reasonable charge and should have little difficulty recouping those sales with the traffic at the event. Plenty of other known contributors, both on the vending and TD sides, going in the opposite direction in the comment section also, roasting the fees and practices by saying these are higher than what is considered standard at other stops, and most of those even choosing to take a percentage instead of charging a flat fee. Sprinkle in questions and debates of whether the added cash goes to the players or the pockets doesn't help quiet the noise. And look, I'm not gonna try and dictate vendor fees and what those should be. Heinhold has every right to set the fees to the price he chooses. And I'm not gonna argue or blast Heinhold for it. What I will debate is the impact of those decisions and ultimately the product that is the event, which we witnessed firsthand while on tour at these stops. There is a stark difference between Heinhold-led events and other major stops on tour. We've been to Ledgestone for multiple years. It's the closest tour stop near us and have made a note to be there year after year. On-site vending at these locations have become stagnant with fewer on-site vendors, with less new ones year after year. The Fly Mart, once one of the pinnacles of all the tour stops, has seen its size, participation, and vendor tables shrink also. And I know there's multiple factors to that, not just what Heinhold is charging. Disc golf economy has not just leveled off, but dipped as of late, making vending tournaments and its profitability more of a question. Yet you can't argue that flat fees that aren't going any lower cuts further into the profits during this market shift and contributes just as much, if not more, to the shrinking amount of vendors at Ledgestone alone, ultimately making the spot less impactful on tour than years prior, despite it being the largest event every year with some of the highest turnout. Still not enough for some vendors to not return. Take the reverse with USDGC and other spots who only take a percentage of the vendors' take, and instead actually seem to have grown their vendor totals in the same time period, which again brings into question of reason and motive of why these spots are different. Some will say this is Heinhold's greed in trying to capitalize of the event, but with no proof of where those additional funds are going, whether it's the prize pool, St. Jude fundraising efforts, or their own pockets, it's still speculation. Others will say this is Heinhold's effort in limiting competition for his featured Ledgestone brand. Foolish to think, as the vendor in the invoice doesn't sell plastic, but by establishing a fee, it's still preventing this. Many can see that. Some go on to say by charging this way, it can be a business write-off. It might be more beneficial to the vendors. But one thing is for sure, the product does get impacted here, and it goes all the way up to the coverage on DGN, as it does contribute to the optics of each event. You only need to look at this year's Champions Cup and past USDGC. And for those who don't like the major comparisons, how about past MVPs and this year's Northwest Disc Golf Championship? But let's hear it from you guys in the comments section. Is $2,000 too much for two events? And what do you think is better for the sport, taking a cut or charging a flat rate? In some other news, Kristen further circles the wagon, as she had her trademark registered with the European Intellectual Property Office, allowing the athlete the right to prohibit others from using her name without permission. Fairly standard practice with well-established brands and similar to some other top pros in the sport. It's also another step Kristen has made in the past 2 years in building a brand, clothing line, and numerous sponsorships. But also could be the latest step in an upcoming offseason where the world's number one is an eligible free agent. Yet protecting your brand further in the lead up to imminent contract talks and signing, it not only makes sense but further professionalize the sport in ways fans often forget. It being on the FPO side, even more so. Do I think this latest move impacts or is a prelude to her future departure with Latitude 64 and House of Discs? Not at all, as they still seem to remain the favorite landing spot for Kristen at this time. Discraft fans will highlight OTB's partnership opening a window to enter the picture. And you can't forget Innova European headquarters being held in Estonia. The MVPs never need a reason to attach the brand to the top free agent every offseason, as I'm sure all major brands will at least kick the tires on a possible signing. And why not? Even if she's currently on a crazy train this year, featured with lowlights by a couple of horrendous finishes as of late, yet she is still near the top of wins on the season and dgpt points leaderboard, and has hit more podiums than people care to remember. The ROI, everyone's favorite word, is most certainly there, and if the contract is long enough, could carry all the way into the World Championships in Estonia, paying off dividends there also, as the length of Kristen's future contract announcement becomes just as important as the dollar total. Kristen could be looking to land the longest and largest contract possible, and justified in doing so, as this might be her last big contract ever. But we could also see her take the risk of signing a shorter deal this winter, betting on herself to leverage the upcoming World Championship in her home country for another contract. Now, let's jump into some quick hitters and try to get out of here because I got a pack. The Kiefers celebrated with the birth of a fourth, as they welcomed their first, James Kevin Kiefer, Roman numerals for 4, as that is beginning to look a little bit more like a Super Bowl logo now. Either way, in all honesty, guys, congratulations goes out to both of you. Evelina Salonen and Nicholas Antala each have their own pizza for Worlds. Antala seeming to go with the more traditional route, which Evelina's pizza looks a lot like her putt as she completely airballed with a side salad atop of hers. Corey Ellis jumped into the fray with some ostrich toppings while he had dinner with Kyle Klein. And no shock here with Klein sticking with the middle school cafeteria pepperoni pick, while still holding ever true with that knife and fork. Being in Europe didn't stop Zach Nash from landing a Baja Blast and maybe some soupy poopies with a below-the-border pick. Homies Tall Paul Oman and Kale LaVisca enjoyed Iceland and an Ireland ace before making their world's visit. And while we're on aces, Yuli hit a dream one on 18 of the Monster, followed by the lefty version and homie Austin Turner. And you guys really need to take the time to check out the selection of discs over at a Finnish grocery store. And hey, it's good to see we got a Thomas Gilbert sighting, as we get to play Where's Thomas for the rest of the world. And guys, that wraps up this week in disc golf. Shout out to all of you who have stayed this long to thank you. Next time you guys see me, I'll be over in Finland. And like always, if you've enjoyed and not subscribed, make sure to do so. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, comment, and share.